Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Serge Knives Trope. This knife is made, according to Serge's website, by Real Steel Knives, so that's the OEM there. It should be available, at least a couple, maybe one or two forms of it are currently available. I'll link it right down below so you guys can check it out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Serge for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. As far as I can tell, this is based on an original custom design by Serge Panchenko, as is the case with all of his production stuff, right? So this is not a custom, it is a production knife, but just wanted to kind of clear that up initially. This, I have to make a comment right off the bat. This is the least Serge, and it's silly for me to say this because he made it, right? So he decides what his aesthetic is. But whenever I think Serge, maybe you're like me, I think of the interesting Serge cleavery stuff, right? So the orbit and the trisect, I think of the Spyderco collab, and of course the new Rook for sure. But obviously, you know, we still have some Serge distinct characteristics here, just without the cleavery blade. And some people might like that. This is not a horribly expensive knife when you consider the materials. But then again, you know, there's some things here that might be a little bit confusing. So I'm going to go over all of that with you guys. Let's go ahead and measure this knife. Overall length of the Trope coming in at about 8 inches. So it's definitely a full-size knife. Blade length is 3.5. Cutting edge is about 3.25. Let's do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you see in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. So up against the 8010 and the 8020.5, you can see it's kind of in between. How about up against the Spyderco? It's literally in between. Up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. It is very similar in overall size to the PM2. But we have a little bit more cutting edge with the Trope. It's just a little shorter overall. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. So how's the action on this knife? Honestly, the action's really, really good. This is a very simple titanium frame lock, and it's not doing anything that any other titanium frame lock on the market isn't doing in terms of like just a good design. But I will say, the detent and the flipper tab and the break of the detent, the action itself feels about perfect. It really, I don't think I could ask for anything better. If you're gonna do one means of deployment on a knife, you know, do it right. Serge has always done this well. Like everything he touches is just exactly right, whether it's something that's made by him or it's a production collaboration, right? Or it's made by somebody else, whatever. The detent strength, the lock bar tension, the action in the pivot, the weight and mass of the blade, the flipper tab shape and texturing, all things that will affect the action. It's just really good. There's no double clutch because that flipper tab is shaped in a way, the overall profile shaped in a way where you can disengage the lock bar easily, turn the knife, give it a little bit of encouragement, it'll shake down into the closed position. It does run on bearings, and I have to add that little bit of access to the lock bar really goes a long way. Despite the lock bar being a 90-degree drop-off, it's cut deep enough that it's pretty nice. And I also feel like the lock bar tension is not so extreme that you don't feel that pressing into your thumb. Truthfully, the knife just flips really, really well. And because of the angle and shape of the flipper tab, even though it looks a little hook-shaped, it's so rounded off right there. You can push button it or you can light switch it. Either way, it's gonna flip. I mean, yeah, the detent strength is awesome. I'll give you guys a look here real quick. It looks light. I know that came out way lighter than I thought it was gonna look. I'm telling you though, that detent ball, the way that where it finally sits or where it finally catches and snaps into place is just really low. But man, I'm telling you, you can see there, the amount of effort is just what you want it to be. So very good. Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3, it's almost exactly the same. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. Closed up, it's a little shorter than the PM2, a little longer than the Para 3. Not quite as tall as either though. Honestly, in and out of the pocket, really wasn't that big of a deal. What are we looking at for materials? This is a little bit confusing. Titanium, And it's nice. It's nice titanium. It's just flat titanium. Most of the personality comes in the shape of the handle and the shape of the blade. The blade itself is made of N690, which is kind of this is a steel where I'm never sure exactly where I want to place it because you're not really going to see it consistently in budget territory, yet it's not really the steel that everybody wants to see immediately above budget territory. Now, this is quite a ways above budget territory, but it's not quite into like insano premium zone, right? So from what I understand, I've kind of gone back and forth on this steel. And personally, I don't have a ton of use experience with it. I mean, I carried this knife and used it for, a couple of days, and that's not enough to really be able to tell. But from what I understand from feedback from people and from doing some reading, it's in the same general ballpark as 154 CM and VG10 in terms of not only edge retention, but just all the other cornerstones of knife steel composition. Its one major claim to fame is going to be corrosion resistance. It's very, very corrosion resistant. And it's made by Bowler, which is the same company who does M390. Now, this is an ingot steel, but to my understanding, it does have fine grain structure. Truthfully, I feel like if we were going to go head to head, and there's other steels you could compare it to, but if we're going to put it up against 154 CM and VG10, I think N690 falls slightly short in the edge retention department, but is head and shoulders above both in terms of corrosion resistance. And then it's fairly well balanced everywhere else and definitely easy to touch up and resharpen. So truthfully, I don't necessarily have a huge problem with it in this general territory. I think once you combine N690, because it's not necessarily an inexpensive composition, it's not like buying HCR 13 MOV. Once you combine it with titanium, even if you are having the knife made in China, it just ends up with a relatively high price tag, right? So it's going to be, I think it's really going to come down to personal preference. I'm always a little more comfortable in this zone to see 154 CM, right? Or to see S35VN, that's kind of what I like to see. But I'm used to it. S35VN would definitely be more premium, but I think it's just a comfort zone thing. So I don't want to come down too hard on N690, but I know that people, especially in this territory, we're right on this teeter-tottery like, do we like that in this? I don't know. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you probably have your own preferred steels. This is the steel on the knife. So a titanium clip, not milled, just a stamped titanium clip, and then an N690. So the weight on this guy is coming in at 4.76 ounces, which is, not a perfect ratio or anything like that, but it's also not incredibly heavy. That's about what the Ritter Hogue weighs in G10. And that thing is the exact same length, right? So I don't consider that a bad weight. In terms of balance, this knife is balanced a little bit behind the pivot, but not bad. It doesn't really feel like a heavy knife or a thick knife, not overly thick anyway. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm gonna get my tools. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down there in the description that talks about you can find them down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. So the pivot's going to be a T8, and we have some T6 screws here and some T6 screws here, just a couple for the clip, no lefty mounting position. Pretty minimal hardware. I wish it was T8, but hey, this is about as simple as it gets for taking apart a traditional frame lock knife with pillar construction, right? Or the two standoffs. Very simple, not going to be difficult. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness. So the blade stock thickness on this guy is coming in at, was that 130, 125? I almost had it right on, 130 thousandths or so. About middle of the road. Let's go ahead and move into the meat and potatoes here. This certainly does have a little bit more zest going on than what we usually see. A lot of knife companies nowadays, they're like, make a straight handle and make a drop point blade and then call it minimalist. And that'll be our new design. And we're like, great. We've only seen that 10,000 times this year. So at least with Serge knives, you can guarantee that you will always get non-traditional pocket knife lines that still end up being pretty ergonomic. I can't say that this is the most comfortable knife that I've ever handled, but it's also not uncomfortable. In fact, it's pretty good. This area right here kind of allows you to lock in without feeling ultra confined. And this area right here, thanks to this very deep sharpening choil, does allow you to choke up. I'd give it maybe a B Like, yeah, I'd give it a solid B on ergonomics. It's not bad, right? Chamfered edges here. Nice lock-in zones without being super sharp or uncomfortable. And because they left this fairly open without turning it, this right here bothers me. I hate that. And I know that some people like that or feel like they need it for whatever they're using your knife for. I don't use my knife so hard that I need to be locked in. I kind of like this to be rounded enough where I'm not getting my pinky squished in if I happen to slide down the handle. So that's okay, right? The whole thing is just okay in terms of handle. There's absolutely nothing else going on the handle. I think you can get these in at least blue, maybe bronze. The Serge logo is milled into the non-show side scale. I think that's fine. Nothing on the show side. This all looks great. On the other side, the blade says Serge Knife Co. And then it says N690 number 37. I believe these are numbered. I'm not sure if the run was 200 or 100, but that's usually the case with all of Serge's stuff. We have a simple tumbled finish on this. What would we call this? What would you guys like to call it? Modified drops point sheep's foot Wiggler 9, I have no idea. Whatever you want to call it, right? We've got a flat here that runs out 50% the length of the blade, and we've got a nice swedge. What I like about the blade is that the nose is tipped down. So somebody like me who does a lot of shaping and draw cuts, as I always say, I like to be able to brace exactly like this with my middle finger here and my index finger up on the nose of the blade so that I can do those shaping cuts. The edge is very well sharpened. I can feel that just by barely touching it with my thumb there, that it's nice and bitey. Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. Now listen, this isn't necessarily, like the thinnest cutting geometry, but the way that is sharpened is extremely bitey, and that's ready to carve into some material. It's also not a horribly thick blade, but it is plenty robust too. And because of the shape out there towards the tip, got a decent amount of durability. N690 is no slouch in terms of toughness when it comes to a stainless composition. It's far from the toughest steel out there, but it's a well-balanced steel. So honestly, I mean, there's a lot of different things you could do with this knife, even a little bit creeping towards, outside the normal parameters of just basic knife stuff, and you'll probably be okay. Obviously, don't abuse your tools, but the blade's set up to kind of be pretty multi-purpose. I like that. And that's not uncommon for Serge stuff. So, yeah. Moving on here, there's really not, what else can I say about the blade and handle? There's just not a lot. Oh, there's a little bit of jimping right here. I think that's probably worth noting. It's interesting that this curves down and then back up, leaving you a little bit of an area here to rest your thumb without it sliding all over the place. It kind of finds a natural position right here in combination with the index finger. I think it complements it well. If you hold your knife that way for specific tasks, you'll find that to be relatively comfortable. There is a lanyard hole, and he's just done one side. He wanted to keep, obviously he wanted the show side of the knife to be as clean as possible, and he was like, nope, veto on that hole right here. You can attach a lanyard just to one side of the titanium, and I don't really have a problem with that. I've talked with him about pocket clips before, and he said, honestly, adding a milled clip to my designs is not really a problem. I just hate them. He likes this shape of this short spoon clip that's stamped. He says, I just find it to be better all the way around, sliding in and out of the pocket. And you know what? I can't really disagree with him. We all like to see a nice milled clip on a fairly expensive knife because it makes us feel good about buying it. I'm one of those people. But functionally, I like that, kind of drop and then spoonbill clip. I've just always preferred that. And he's right. It is. It's easier in and out of the pocket. It just works better. Retention's good. Carry depth is about medium. You do have a little bit of bulbous knobs sticking up out of your pocket there, but it's not terrible. I'm still going to call this medium depth. We do have a steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop, so that's nice. The stop pin is actually attached to the blade. You can see right there. It's riding on channels that are carved out on either side of the titanium, so you get an additional point of contact versus a traditional one-point stop pin like on this pair of 3. This is nice, not only for mitigating pressure away from the pivot. There's arguments about that. Every time I say that, I get somebody arguing with me. That's fine. Do it. You can argue. I feel like the blade is slightly, ever so slightly, even though if it'll never really, if it's never something that you can prove in normal use, slightly more durable in that way. But I think more importantly, what this allows for is consistently smooth action with solid lockup, because the blade has even less room to wiggle since there's a point of contact on either side. So there's no blade play, up, down, left, to right. the lockup percentage, which sometimes I forget to show, you can see right here, it's looking like maybe 50%. Let's actually look at the tang, the blade. You can see there that little black mark is exactly 50% with some really good lockup geometry. There's no movement whatsoever, no lock stick, no double clutch, no pivot lash, extremely smooth and consistent in here, which Real Steel is definitely known for. And like I said, the detent doesn't look heavy, but it's heavier than you would expect, and it leads to a very, very satisfying flip. This is it's made well. It's got good enough materials, and it's definitely got that Serge personality without having the Serge signature cleaver, like space robot cleaver, whatever he calls that, which I very much enjoy. This is a $150 knife, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. The steel, I've never been super excited about N690, even though now I'm starting to understand that it is within the same performance field as VG10 and 154. And 154 is a steel that I do like very, very much. So perhaps I just need to recalibrate. It still just doesn't really tickle the senses, you know what I mean? The knife, while definitely not resembling, like the common stuff that we get like every day from the 2023 knife world. You guys are watching this in 2024. I'm recording this at the very end of the year, but it's scheduled for very early January 2024. It is pretty plain, right? The price tag is all right. It's not like, wow, what a deal, right? I mean, if this thing came in at $100, I'd be like, holy little smokies, what's going on here, right? 125, 130, I'd be like, yeah, that's about where I thought. 150s, it's okay, right? If you're just like looking for a nice production Serge design that's a little bit different and definitely high quality, I mean, that's something that can absolutely be said for this knife. It is functional, it is extremely high quality and plenty durable. It will do what you need it to do. And that N690 will treat you well, and it's super duper stainless, right? It's not a bad steel at all. It's just hard for there to be a reason to choose N690 over any other steel, right? And honestly, like there's a bunch of budget steels that people prefer over N690. There's some mid-range steels people prefer over N690, and there's obviously some super steels, right? If he was charging $150 and he put S35VN on this, I'd be pretty pumped, right? That'd be pretty cool. But as it sits, this knife is okay. I'm not upset and I'm not excited about it. It just is what it is. It's not really something that I feel like you guys should be rushing out and like, you got to have this, is better than anything else, right? But if you like how it looks and you're only concerned with the overall build quality, you look at the price tag and you're like, listen, Complex, I can swing that. I just want to know, is it comfortable? Is it utilitarian? And is it made well? The answer to all those questions is yes, absolutely, right? So if that's all you needed to know, pick it up. This will make you happy. For anybody else, there's a lot of competition at $150. I've covered a lot of it on this channel. You got a lot of looking around to do, right? If you circle back to this one and this is it for you, then great. But I'm telling you, there's a ton of competition for this knife. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Thanks again to Serge for sending this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.